It's good to be here today. Bees design, a new framework to brainstorm for accessible solutions. Hello, my name is Zoe O'Neill. My pronouns is he, him, and his. I'm an assistant professor of graphic design at the University of Minnesota Duluth. I teach U.S. interactive design courses. My research and teaching focus is on the topic of accessibility. Bees design is a method that I've developed to teach graphic designers how to design accessible solutions. Maybe you can use it too. Bees design is a framework to generate ideas using the principles and methods of inclusive design phenomenon, and inclusive design. The goal for using Bees design is to brainstorm innovative accessible solutions that will tap into everyone's abilities. Now let's explore the following. Number 1. Discuss how the digital and physical experiences are merging together. This requires us to find innovative ways to design accessible and inclusive solutions. Number 2. Outline how the Bees design framework can help generate ideas. Number 3. Explain how my students are using Bees design for the projects. And 4. Outline how you can use Bees design. As my quick research teaching involves, it is becoming clear there is a shift happening in graphic design. However, that shift is not very easy to define. Not long ago, graphic designers developed campaigns brand systems with a clear defined meaning and applications, including logos, brochures, posters, websites, and more. These mediums are becoming more brilliant with how they are made, displayed, and spent. Transfer media, dynamic data, and other technologies are merging where graphic design ends and another discipline starts. Now let's talk about how physical and digital environments are merging into one experience. We have physical spaces and digital experiences that are merging together. Each aspect of this immersive experience must be accessible. Design shows a screen grab of an article about how retail stores are making apps for people to use in their retail stores. If more companies use the same model, it will forever impact the retail experience. Other digital and physical environments and devices go beyond the web content accessibility guidelines scope. They may also have to deal with the United States Disabilities Act compliance for physical spaces. So everything must be accessible. So how do you make all those experiences accessible? I'm fascinated by the depth and breadth of accessibility solutions that people encounter in their physical and digital environments. and how those solutions are branded and communicated to the world. Likewise, I am intrigued by the processes and methods to bring some ideas that make all aspects of industrial parks, mobile parks, as well as physical and digital environments accessible. The various touchpoints that people encounter to experience a brand, whether digital or analog, can impact the graphic design industry, and not just US design. Exploring the touchpoints of the various places, data, and information is how I teach different aspects of accessibility to my students. The learning of accessibility is where I hope students can get excited about US design and possibly explore as a career as a US or park designer. I know there will still be students who are not interested in US design or another part of digital design. Maybe they could be interested in surface design or consumer experience design as a career option. I hope that my students, regardless of their design passions, learn why accessibility is important for all design solutions. Most importantly, I want my students to have a framework for achieving accessibility in the design work that they produce. I call this method ableist design. Now let's talk about how ableist design may help you brainstorm innovative ideas for accessibility. I encourage everyone to learn. I aim for my students not to perceive disability as a problem they must solve. That they must solve. Liz Dawson, one of the speakers for this conference, discussed at length for other conferences that society believes disability is a problem to be solved. I encourage everyone to learn what Liz has said about this topic. Liz spoke about the mediums that the city public uses in the daily lives that originate from the disability community as they try to work around barriers. A good example of this is curve cuts. Once those things have become mainstream, it is often forgotten that they are a part of the culture and the history of the disability community. Ableist design teaches students about the intersectionality of people. As they educate and disability advocates are put into place ways for students to learn and honor the intersectionality of people. Some people with disabilities are black or brown, female, a member of the LGBTQ plus community, and so on. Studying the topic of intersectionality is another pathway for students to realize the barriers that we put in front of people, regardless if they have a disability or not. This approach helps students not to perceive people with disability as other or make them feel as though they have to be their own eye. In this context, this makes people with disabilities less than. The idea of OI goes back to what Liz Dawson said regarding how society believes disability is a problem to be solved, and therefore people with disability are perceived as needing help. The idea of needing help may make my students think that they have to be an ally for people with disability, and I'm trying to break that line of thinking because the disability community will never achieve full equity and inclusion in society if they need an ally. This notion of an ally also creates a us versus them mentality. Now let's talk about how ableism design teaches students about different aspects of disability studies. Before the brainstorming and prototyping sessions began, I introduced my students to the current on-screen diagram, which lists various topics of disability studies. Students are engaged in different activities learning about these aspects. The diagram on the right demonstrates how disability can be examined within the context of political science, community studies, ableism, history, ecofascism, impact makers, discipline models, and design. For example, they learn the various effects from the disability rights movement in the 1970s and 80s. The session 504 sit-in that took place in 1977. Students also studied the work of Patty Moore. She is considered to be the mother of universal design. Students learn about Patty Moore's project to study how the LA experienced barriers and ableism. Students document the resource by developing diagrams. Students use Miro, an online whiteboard application, to help them make connections between materials. Soon, the Microsoft Persona Spectrum model of disability makes an impact as they take on disability studies activities. The model states that the three kinds of disability exist. For example, there is permanent disabilities. Example of that would be blindness. The second kind of disability is temporary disabilities. Example of that would be a swollen eye. And the third kind of disability is situational disabilities. And an example of that is interrupted view. Now let's talk about how ableist design explores universal design for learning, and inclusive design. Once students finish researching and various Once students finish researching various aspects of disability studies, they examine the difference and similarities between universal design for learning, and inclusive design. This activity aims to make them realize that different design approaches exist for creating something that is accessible for diverse disabilities. Like evident in life, universal design for learning, and inclusive design have pros and cons. However, out of the box ideas are born when students learn ideas for design solutions that combine different principles and methods from universal design for learning, and inclusive design. Now let's talk about universal design. Here are the pros and cons of universal design. Pros. There are times and situations when universal design solutions are appropriate. Cons. Universal design solutions can serve the needs of many, thereby they do not address the unique needs of individuals. One-size-fits-all approaches often do not work, especially for people with disabilities. Let's talk about universal design for learning. Here are the pros and cons for universal design for learning. Pros. Universal design for learning extends learning opportunities to more people regardless of their abilities, age, and circumstances. Cons. Universal design for learning needs a suitable environment and equipment to be most effective. Let's talk about inclusive design. Here is the pros and cons of inclusive design. Pros. Inclusive design solutions address the unique needs of individuals. Cons. It is not possible to make everything adaptable. Adaptability can result in complacency and make this more expressive. The students take the best parts of universal design, individual design for learning, and inclusive design to develop ideas that can be innovative for solving accessibility and inclusive design barriers. This framework aims to make it click with them that there are different approaches to design something that is accessible for a diverse set of disabilities. The principles and methods of universal design for learning, and inclusive design can merge in a variety of ways to find interesting connections and patterns. There is no right or wrong way to using this design. You don't have to use every part of universal design. Universal design for learning and inclusive design for your ideas. Add small pieces of each to know what is and what is not working. Be careful with your ideas. Examine how the principles and methods for each discipline can overlap with each other. Focusing on accessibility is my unique approach to teaching graphic design at my university. Let me talk about how my students use this design for the projects. Maybe this projects will help you think about how you can use a base design for the work that you do. This past fall, I taught interactive design too. I assigned students a semester-long project to produce a gallery exhibition. Using the Beats design framework, each student designed an app prototype for a tablet that will help visitors interact with the art pieces in the gallery. The course goals were to provide undergrad students with the means to enhance the skills and the various parts of design, from type, layout, and color. It also has to go to teach the principles of interactive design. I did all of those things by having my students explore accessibility design. This past, I assigned students were responsible for designing the branding website and interior of the exhibition space. Their exhibition design will provide people with no vision or blindness the ability to experience the art on display. Students also realize that many people are excluded from experiencing the arts. This was not something they thought about before taking on this project. Students spend a great deal of time researching an art movement of their choice. The art movement became the basis of the gallery exhibition. They had to think about describing an art movement to people with no vision or blindness. Students had a lot to think about as they work on the project. This slide contains a prototype that one student created. The app provides information about each piece in the gallery. The app's design was made using the principles of individual UDL and ID, inclusive design. The students spent a great deal of time studying visual design for learning to examine how they can communicate to a diverse set of people. Studying inclusive design helps inform how a user can adapt the app's interface. It has several accessibility features, including audio descriptions and users' ability to select also touch sizes. This slide shows a part of the student's gallery space. The principles of universal design greatly impact the exhibition's layout because everyone can use the space without adaptation. The tablet will be given to people when they enter the gallery. The app on the tablet provides a customizable experience because it enables people to navigate the exhibition and experience the art in different ways. In years past, students took on a project that asked them to redesign an industrial park that was not accessible. They also redesigned the park's identity and brand. My student made a walker for outdoor hiking. He made the prototype from old bike parts. Hiking was something that my student and his dad enjoyed doing together. The idea of the park came to him because his dad could not hike anymore. My student knew that similar parks were currently on the market, but wanted to add more accessibility features. He also developed the entire brain experience. These two projects go back to what I said earlier about blending where graphic design discipline ends and where another discipline begins. Instead of designing brochures, booklets, and graphic designers are now designing interiors, social systems, and industrial products. Here are the steps for using a base design. Start with disability studies. Before making a market profile or persona, take a deep dive into disability studies. It will gain insights to how people with disabilities encounter the world around them and impact society throughout time. It will also come to realize that accessibility equals ableism. Examine inclusive design for learning, and inclusive design. Based on how your design project can utilize the three different disciplines. Evaluate your ideas. Develop lists of the pros and cons that each discipline can offer for accessibility and inclusion. And thank you for coming to my presentation. If you want to know more about basic design, please email me. Thank you.
Wow, John. I mean, the examples that you gave were just fantastic of the students. We've got a lot of items in the chat that a lot of people were encouraged by seeing those student projects that you showed us, and just they wanted to see the spread of those techniques being taught in all design programs. I know, John, that a lot of times when we're teaching design, we teach universal design for learning, and inclusive design as if they're separate, right? Separate thoughts, school of thoughts.
Yes.
And I think by including them and taking the pros from each of them, it just makes it a much more powerful thought. I like how you talked about playing with it. So a first question I'll give you, John, from one of our participants is, this is from someone who works as an accessibility specialist on a campus.
Okay.
Do you have any suggestions to get more of the faculty on board for bringing in more of these type of design principles?
Well, I think the key, the first step, I should say, is to know the difference between them, both all three of them. Because other times people confuse inclusive design for inclusive design. And some people don't even know there is a thing called inclusive design, and that is different from inclusive design. And other people in the education arena that I'm in, they speak to inclusive design when they really are talking about inclusive design for learning. So I think that's really the key to know the differences between the three, and um, and once you know that, you can really delve into how they came about, how each one came about, and why they came about.
Yeah.
And once you know that, then you can really utilize all three of them to think about the problem that you're trying to solve. Whether it is trying to create a better customer experience, or it's trying to think about how someone may navigate from one end of the campus to the other part of the campus.
So one of the questions I think, John, and it gets right to the point you just made, right, is, let's say I'm new to one of those disciplines, right?
Mm.
Either universal design or universal design for learning or inclusive design. Do you have any good resources that you think I should turn to expand my knowledge in maybe one of those three areas so I can, to yourself, I can meld the best of together.
Oh, well, if you want to know more about that, please email me, and I'll be happy to talk to you directly. Um, Off my head, the one book that comes to my mind is is I forgot now. It's not one in my head anymore. Um, oh yes, Mismatch.
Mitchman,
That's
yes.
yeah, that is um a book I think that everybody that is trying to make accessibility important part of what they do and what they uh, the place where they work at. If they can read the book, I think that offers great insights
Yeah,
to
that's Kat Holmes' book. I've got
yeah
that one
Ken
as well,
Holmes.
John. It's just a great
Yeah,
book on design. I
yeah,
agree with you. So thanks for
yes,
sharing that one. Yeah.
yeah. It's very easy to read. Yeah, it's very approachable in that way.
Yeah, I agree. It's a good device to just get us to better understand things. Um, uh, that we go. So you talked about the process, and I think someone has answered a great question just for that experience. So when you combine those three processes, have you found a section or a philosophy that maybe students have had more difficulty with because it is such a different way of thinking about design?
Um, well, now one of the things that um that they are thinking about before they get to my classroom is they think that design is something that ought to be beautiful, something beautiful to look at. And enough times when they go to design program at the end of their freshman year, they often talk about design as art. Like
Yeah,
I want to make good art because I always like to draw, and I took art in high school and it was fun and it inspired me to come to UND University of Minnesota Duluth and major and 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 art. And so when they get to my cats, they hopefully more than not they realize that that design is different from art.
yeah,
Um, so and that has to stick on multiple levels on you yes, I mean, we want our designs to be beautiful without a doubt. Um, um, but we also want to function correctly. Um, and we want, the people that consume our designs to do what we want them to do. So, so I think that's really, something that that they come out of when they take me,
yeah.
because they know that when they get me, that they're going to do something about this accessibility. So,
Well, and John, I think
yeah,
you showed a great example of that with the application that they put together for the art gallery, right? It
yes,
was functional, it was accessible, and it was beautiful all at the same time, right? So
yes,
that's where you
yes,
put those design philosophies together and can show it's not like you have to make decisions. I do this or this. It's like, as a designer, how do I play around? And that's, John, I can't tell you how excited I was when you used that framework when we talked about those design philosophies, is to truly play around with those
yeah.
and get the best of all, right? Not just one or the other. So,
Yeah, so that's a good point because there's no one way to do it. You
right.
know, it's just an act of play.
Yeah.
And
Well, and
when you are in that mode of playing, um, good things can happen.
yeah. Well, and John, I like the way you're talking about it because to me it shows it. Is there some science to it? Yes. Is there some art to it? Yes. You just need to figure out how to mix those two and enjoy both at the same time,
Yes,
right? So great designs you showed us from the students, both of them, the hiking walker and the art student. One of the participants asked, okay, so now I have my design. And I think you and I would agree sometimes the frustration comes to, I have my design, I have it to hand it to the development team, and it comes out the other side, and it's not what I meant, right? It's not the experience I meant. Do
right.
you have ideas or thoughts on, is there a certain tool I can use to help me handle that handoff? Or is there ideas that I can give to the developers so they can translate what I'm trying to do with the experience? Any thoughts around that?
Yeah, I would say to get them involved in this whole method of basic design and show them, you know, you know, this is where my ideas came from, and this is what I was trying to do here. I was trying to use this method from inclusive design and it's been working that way and so on. So to me, I would say be upfront about like the process that you all took,
Mhm.
and if he can communicate to them there's different methods and principles, you know, that would that hopefully that would give them a good idea of the output that you want them to do.
Taking him on that journey, yeah,
Yeah,
that to me is
yeah,
just, now I can put myself in that user's shoes, which designers are so good at doing, and it allows me to feel the same thing that the designers do. Go ahead.
yeah.
Any other thoughts on
If
that?
I may add to that, um, you know, because my students are design majors, um, they don't get into necessarily the code part of things or
Mhm,
the actual, you know, making the app a real
mhm.
app but so I don't really have that experience with students about, you know, um, how they can talk to a programmer or a engineer. Um, but that's really my next step that I really want to take because um, it's it's one thing to have this idea and to have it in Figma. I never know what Figma is, but Figma is a prototype application, and have them rename that prototype to a real app or website.
So, John, I love the example that you also gave in your conversation and your talk about experiencing, because it pulled out some of that, maybe that ableism that we were not aware of as designers. Do you have suggestions for designers that might not have a robust usability program out there of how they can explore better of understanding maybe some of the roadblocks that people with disabilities face in those designs that we're building?
Yes. So go back to the book Mismatch. Um, that book specifically talks about the different kinds of disabilities. They came from Microsoft. There's temporary, there's temporary, permanent,
Yep.
temporary, and situational.
Hmm.
Um, and I use that one to describe to my students, you know, like they're not just one disability. There's a multiple kind
Yeah.
of disability, and that disability can happen at any time in any situation. That opens people's minds to that. Um, but I also do that because um, as a professional with not I can't bring in people from the outside all the time
Yep.
to to try out these prototypes. Um, for one, Duluth, Minnesota, there's only a handful of organizations that do the work of helping people with disabilities and
Yep.
providing services to them, what have you. So I have tapped into that
Sure.
resources, but I only can do that so much, and so. And I can't just go up to people and say, "Hey,
Yep.
you got a disability. Can you come to my class?"
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
I can I cannot do that. So to work around that, I introduced them to the those three different kinds of disabilities, and they from that they realize that they too can get a disability at any time. They can
Yep.
get it, in any given situation or that down the road that although they are defined as able-bodied, that that there will be one point where they go to have a disability.
So, John, let me ask you another question. And this is interesting because I think someone brought it up. Sadly, right, we get 50 minutes with you today. And I can tell you, I've learned a lot just by listening to you talk about and your passion about this topic. Besides going to take a class with you at the University of Minnesota Duluth, which sounds like a great idea, is there other
We
resources?
need more students, by the way.
Is there other resources out there that I can help push my game forward with this concept? Because it's such to me an earth-shattering concept.
Well, unfortunately, there's not. When it talks about bringing all those things together,
Hmm.
um, there's not any resources that I know of that do that. Um, However, in the near future, um, I don't know how near or the near future, but I'm trying to make something
Yeah.
that would be that everybody can get these resources. So I'm working on it, and I, I try my best. I got teaching to do. I got all these different things to do. But one of my main goals, in the next year or 2 years, is to make a whole bunch of resources
Nice.
to explore this whole idea.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear
Yes.
that. One person asked too, we've got your email address, which John, we can't thank you enough for allowing us that resource to really talk to the source if we have some questions.
Yes.
Do you do any other social media platforms like Twitter that we can also follow you on, or is it really just email that's the best way to talk?
Probably just email. I do have an Instagram account and what have you, but I'm not on it that much anymore because I'm so busy trying to think about how I can make this more accessible with
Yep.
this whole idea of using these different disciplines.
Yeah.
So I think about that day and night.
Sure. Sure. So let me ask you another question that just came in. I think is an awesome question, and I think we might have saw it with the art exhibit app.
Mm.
How did the students address when they're trying to look at multiple impairments at the same time, multiple disabilities at the same time? How do they address that? In the fact is with the hiking walker, they were looking at mobility, right? But with that
Yes.
app, that art app, I noticed there were some things in there for cognitive. I noticed there were some things in there for vision. How do you see the process different when I'm trying to look at different and disabilities maybe when designing?
Well, what I try to do is I pose a lot of questions to them. Uh, you know, you know, for example, I might say, do you think that typeface is readable to someone with no vision? Um, is the type size, is it big enough? Um, or is it too big? Um, is it overpowering everything else? Um, so I try to ask a lot of questions, um, and it's especially this semester, I have put into place different um um we have to critique work, and rather than having the students say, "Oh, I like that," I try to have them to ask questions in terms of providing feedback.
Yeah.
So they will have to say, that blue color with the red that is overlapping, the green. Do you think that is a good contrast, or does it, you know, does that meet the rectangle accessibility guidelines? So I think the question is to ask questions.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they can
Yeah.
be the most powerful thing, right? Just asking
Yes.
those questions and forcing me to maybe think differently because of
Yes.
the question I ask.
Yes.
So John, we're starting to come up on time. What I wanted to do is kind of give you a moment here to let the participants know what is the one thing you really feel from our discussion today is so important for me to do as a next step out of your conversation, because it is such a powerful conversation.
Yes. One of the things that we have not talked about in this Q&A is disability studies. We take a deep dive into the different aspects of disabilities, from the history of disability to how government perceive disability, and how disability has informed design. And I think that if we can um look at that,
Hmm.
then they're going to have a more open mind of these different ways that people have always solved problems.
Hmm.
Um, that what you're trying to do, most likely someone else has always tried to do. So if we can do some research on that, and find out who is doing what, I think that's a great way to learn.
Thank you very much, John. I want to
Yes.
thank John for his time, his energy. John, your passion, because I can really hear your passion. I can really see your passion today. And thank you for sharing that with us. I want to thank everyone for attending. A friendly reminder, because I saw one of the questions that came in was about John's email address. You can come back, watch the recording at any time. John's got that email address in his slides. The slides are also available. I'm going to say for both, I think John and myself, we hope you really learned a lot from this conversation.
Yes.
You leveled up today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of XCon. Thank you very much, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.